the Instagram. Tap in on the Instagram. We're live right now and on the Facebook. Today is Sunday, January 29th, and as promised, we start off the new year with a bang. In studios with us is one of my brethren there for a long time. This man here spark a fire in me. There was an event called Social Currency, and at that stage I become a fan. I mean, you know, man, I ain't too much fan of things to people still, but yeah, I'm a fan. We have in studios with us Patrick Walters. The man is a poet. The man is a lecturer, entrepreneur, doing a whole bunch of things, but I won't even go into all of the whole diatribe and try to put him in a box because the guy is an entity. So, Patrick, how have you been, sir?
Greetings. I'm blessed. I can't really complain at all. And even if I could, there would be no point, you know. So I'm just giving thanks every time. I appreciate y'all for having me here this afternoon. This is a really special occasion. Every time I come to St. Kitts, I come back to St. Kitts, I always try and, you know, have conversations with like-minded individuals who I see doing good things, and that y'all fit into that category easily. Yeah. So I'm very blessed and happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to a really good conversation.
Yeah, man. And, you know, I think it's important for the masculine energy to connect in this time. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot happening in the world, but we need representation.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And we need to show that masculinity still has a place, like the type of masculinity that we demonstrate.
Positive masculinity.
Yeah, positive masculinity.
Yes, definitely.
But there's something we always argue about, eh? So I'm going to argue about that again, right?
What?
Because masculinity and femininity doesn't have a gender. Because you got some feminine traits inside of you as well.
Yeah, but the
men have to connect.
You're masculine dominant, though, the traits.
That's the thing.
Yeah. So it's a balance, I think.
Yeah, it's a balance.
Because I think there's someone out there saying, well, I'm masculine too.
And
that's all right.
And
me some feminine to attack, you know.
As long as you treat people with respect, you know, that's all I'm at.
And go your people around you.
Yeah, definitely. And the energy positive.
But I mean, Patrick, you've been out. You've been away from home for a little while.
I know.
Canada, doing great works, you know what I mean? I've been tapping in, I've been
your
listening
second
to the
album,
lectures.
you on?
Yeah, second album dropped in November 18th was the date. Human Nature is the name of the album, and it's been great so far. The reception has been fantastic. I've been overjoyed to see people from Toronto and from St. Kitts really tapping in and showing love, and, you know, it's been a wonderful journey since I became, you know, a full-time artist. And like I was saying, I did an interview with the Ontario Poet Laureate in Toronto, and I was telling them, you know, like, when I first came to Toronto, I had no idea what it was like. You know, I had ideas of what I thought it would be and what I was expecting, but the reality is completely different. So I'm just so blessed to be in a position now where I could be, you know, an artist full-time, pursuing my dreams and goals, and, you know, putting out a second studio album now is really a wonderful blessing. So yeah, it's been a wonderful journey so far.
When you're doing your albums, do you do research before you start putting together an album?
Yeah, I do research in many different ways. So there's preliminary research in terms of internally where I want to be, where I want to center the album. You know, so for example, my first album, The Offshore Account, was a lot more external. Yeah. You know, I was looking at society, and I was looking at the way that things are run, infrastructure, appreciate it. Yeah. And you know, for me now, I realized in my second project that I wanted to be a lot more personal. So I was like, how do I want to be more personal? Because obviously, you know, your personality will come out regardless. But at the same time, you have to be mindful of that. You know, and I really wanted to show people like, okay, this is Patrick Walters, the individual, the human being, you know, and I had to show my human nature first before I could ask folks to go into their own human nature and see what that's like. So that was the first part of research. Secondly now is the themes, the topics that I want to talk about, how I want to put them together. You know, there was a track on the album where I spoke about being detained by the police in university and what that experience was like, and just that whole experience of being racially profiled and othered by law enforcement in a major city. And I had to do some research on exactly the course of events that took place, and really, like, you know, go back and be like, okay, this is what happened first, Then they took me outside. Then was the thing. Then was the thing, you know. And at the end of the day, I was like reliving all these moments in time, and I was like, man, like I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot.
Is it putting you on the spot to ask you to give us a piece of that?
No, not at all. I give you the second verse real quickly. Imagine my family send me good Toronto, come get an education, York University placement. When you look now, my classmates calling officers on me. What could they have seen? Hair and black jacket. Cops say report was a hatchet. Officer, my keychain has a small knife and a pendant. Nothing else is on my person. Officers escorting me out to the classroom. This can't be real life, must be cartoon. Still can't believe further against the wall. Can't believe the squad got involved. Thank God it resolved. They take my keys, I had to go retrieve them after class. Never been so embarrassed for some that happened to me. They take everything down to your humanity. 2 summer schools back to back, and then I graduated. I had to get out to the placement. I ain't that placement is a higher calling that I on my way with.
Straight.
So, you know, one of the things that
I had to blow out a little bit.
One of the things that I've identified in your delivery, right, is that you don't necessarily shy away. So even though you're in a big metropolitan city, you don't shy away from the Caribbean influence and the use of the dialogue and slang, right? How important is that for you to represent in that way?
That was actually another huge part of research that I had to do. He was asking me at ATIBA about research and stuff, and that really plays a huge part, because at the end of the day, I am from St. Kitts. I can go and try and be something that I'm not, especially in something that is as personal to me as my work and my art as an artist, you know. So I have to make sure that when I'm putting it out, that it's something that's real to me, you know. And I may code switch for business, or I may code switch in Toronto and, you know, use my quote unquote Canadian accent to talk to them so that I could be understood, and, you know, they could recognize that I'm able to communicate with them and stuff like that. And also, I don't want to have to repeat myself every other sentence, you know. So that's a whole other other side of it. But really and truly, that was a huge factor for me. And if you listen to the album, like, most of it is just me in my regular dialect, regular accent, just speaking and doing work like that. And, you know, granted, there may be some people in Toronto who might listen to that and maybe they don't understand everything, but they'll understand enough to hear the story. And then if they are curious enough to understand more, then they will research and be like, okay, this is what he was talking about. This is what he's referring to when he says, man, or, you know, certain things that they don't really say over there. Like, the other thing is that I'm fortunate enough to be in a city like Toronto where there's already a strong Caribbean influence. So the idea is not so foreign to them. They could hear somebody from the Caribbean and be like, okay, I can understand most of what they're saying. Obviously, certain Kittitian words or phrases might not be so, you know,
universally accepted.
Yeah, universally accepted and stuff like that. But you could fill in the blanks and use context clues to really understand the full picture of what it is I'm saying, you know? So, yeah, and also, like, the other part of it too is that for me to really show how good at dropping bars I am, I have to fully go into it, you know, because there's certain things that I want to say in my Kittitian accent that there's no translation for in Toronto vernacular. There's simply no way to communicate it. You know what I'm saying? So
it's required.
It's required.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, when I listen to it, there is this resonance. It feels organic. It feels intentional, and there's a sense of pride that I get just from listening to your work because I know where you come from.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
You relate to it, and it's on this international stage, and you see it, and you see the Caribbean influence, but beyond the Caribbean influence, there's that homegrown, local representation. Yeah, man, I'll be chanting down them.
I appreciate it, man. That's key.
One thing I recognize about your delivery too is you have this way of ramping up. It's like you will start out here.
Yeah, I like to do that.
And you ramp up and it's just like you feel intensity from, you know what I mean? So
I like to do that.
Yeah, so it's really good.
One of the reasons that I choose to do some deliveries in that way is that I feel like if you go into a track, let's say I'm doing a verse on a song, right? And I start out the song going 1,000,000 miles an hour. Somebody who is not at that level of energy or in that particular mood or mindset, might have trouble accessing that level of, you know, going right for it, bam, 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 like Twister, like, you know, the rapper Twister.
Yeah.
This guy don't slow down for nobody. You know what I'm saying? As soon as he starts a verse, you know, and that's cool because that's his moniker, that's his style that he's developed over a period of time. But I want to make sure that everybody has an endpoint, first of all, to hear what I'm saying. And then after that, we start to take it up a level. And what it does is that it builds anticipation and a crescendo in your emotions, so that when you're listening to the track now, your emotions also going up as I going up too.
Yeah, that
You know
happens.
what I'm saying? And then by the time you're done, now we make it to the chorus or something, you're like, yeah.
You know? But that's what it's like listening to the first album when I was listening to, because it's like you're going on a journey with you, you know?
Right.
There's a track on the first album, I can't remember the name, but it's talking about the lion, so it was something in relation to, I think, local like gang violence type vibe.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my favorite track. What's that one called?
That's but it's probably two of them. That could be Greedy or it could be ROI. Greedy is probably like the single from the first album that a lot of people recognize. Some people just walk up to me and in the street randomly still and be like, they're greedy. And I'm like, they're greedy. You know what I'm saying? Just loving that, just feeding off the energy. And that track was talking about that and kind of highlighting like how the school to prison pipeline is still well in place.
Right.
And it encourages a lot of extracurricular activities, not positive. We talk about positive male energy at the start of the show. And what happens when, you know, these systems are put in place to incarcerate young black men at a very disproportional rate is that it creates a lot of negative masculine energy because they don't have an outlet to express themselves in a positive way like we do in here, for example, and therefore they're forced to do that in other ways that might not necessarily be good for the society that they live in, you know. And so for me, highlighting something like that is very important because I could see I had so many friends who gone down that journey and, you know, experienced negative backlash because of that, whether it be crime and violence or was a part of violence, or they may be spending time in jail, or even worse, spending, you know, they gone up Springfield because at the end of the day, you know, too much negative influences started to fall upon them and sent them down in a negative track. And I'm like, yo, that could have easily been me. That could have easily been somebody I've seen all the time, right? So for me, it's about sharing those stories and being like, yo, let's really dig into what is causing these issues underline. Don't just blame it on the people them because they're gone and thief or they're gone and do something or whatever the case may be. Why does that person need to steal?
Right.
Why does that person need to commit a crime?
So let's explore the concepts of inequality.
Right. Let's go a level deeper and say, what are the infrastructural systematic things that are allowing crime and violence to be proliferated in our society?
And then how do we find resolution?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what that track was about for sure.
So it's about exploration. You know, I mean, it's a big move. And I feel like, again, these types of voices are required in this time. Because as men, we got to talk about the things that we see.
And experience.
The things that we see. And the corrections that we try to make. No, aren't necessarily for us. Because, you know, usually when someone starts a revolution, they don't witness the end of it.
No.
Right? So it's for your children and your children's children.
Yeah.
But we have to create that momentum.
Yeah.
That shift in the
and
consciousness.
It's very difficult. I love that you said it that way because I was listening to a speech by Barack Obama a couple of years ago, and Barack said, you have to be willing, if you really plan to be, you know, in this thing for change and in this thing for a positive outcome, right? You have to be willing to tackle causes and issues that are not solvable in your lifetime. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, let's say income inequality.
Yeah.
Right? That is a generational problem. That's not something that you could write a check and then solve the issue tomorrow.
Because it's multifaceted.
Multifaceted on so many different levels, right? So for me now, it's like, okay, just because we may not be able to fix it in one generation. Does that mean that we shouldn't tackle it at all?
Yeah,
No,
we should-
of course not.
We should engage with
We
it.
should engage with it, right? We should try our best every day to try and move the goalpost forward a little bit more and a little bit more till one day we get to a point now where we don't have these same issues in such a terrible way.
Because every mickle make a muckle.
You check. I like that one there.
So
I like that one there. Yeah, trust me. So for me, it's like, okay, how can we, like, it obviously, like, you know, it's a certain level of what do you call it? It's a certain level of selflessness that you have to have in terms of understanding that, like, you may not benefit from the work that you're doing right now. You might, your child might benefit, or your child might benefit, but at the same time, that makes it even more important because we cannot allow these things to continue to invade our society. We have to address them.
And, you know, a big part of it, and we just had this conversation maybe half an hour ago. We just had this conversation where we were saying a lot of these things requires responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? You have to take responsibility because it's very easy for you to say, okay, you're affecting me right now.
Right.
I might be in a position where I kind of financially stable.
Yeah,
so if
yeah,
we're talking about, you know what I mean, those inequalities, it might not be affecting you because you're good. You could buy a nice car, you could go up Hosford's or TDC and get your basic needs. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could build a little nice house or something and you're straight. But then at what stage do you take responsibility for the future generation?
Right.
When do you start having these conversations?
And
And I feel like that's our responsibility as men.
Absolutely. And also to add to that, what systems are you benefiting from that are putting somebody else in a backseat? Because at the end of the day, like, for example, for me now, going overseas and being able to earn a living and make a good name for myself and doing things right, I got to be mindful of the fact that that's not everybody else's experience. You know what I'm saying? That's not everybody else's experience. Some people either don't have any interest in that, or some people do have interest in that, but they don't have the
Access.
ability or opportunities, right? So it's like, what am I doing for those people now? I can't just be looking at myself and being like, okay, I get myself out the mud, I good.
Yeah.
That's child play. That's child's play. That's a immature mindset.
No, you gotta reach back.
Right.
You gotta reach back.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing for me.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's what we try to do as well. Is we've identified that sometimes it ain't even about you.
No.
You know what I mean? It's about giving the next man a strength because I think Tupac said, you know, he might not be the one to change the world, but he definitely gonna spark
Yeah.
the person,
Yeah.
spark the interest in the person that
Right.
does do it.
Right.
So that is even what we're attempting to do now. Like, but we ain't got all the ideas. But if we could create these types of collaborations,
Right.
probably maybe Patrick might come on the show and drop a science that resonate with a youth man that listen and
Directly.
it's just like, yo, it ain't come from me.
Right.
But because it ain't come from me, it ain't supposed to forward. So, you know,
Right.
that's the mindset that I think we need to adopt just generally. And a lot of people exist in a space of selfishness. And to me, I've gotten to a place where I've identified that selfishness kind of unjustified.
Yeah.
Because to the point that you were making, but how much man forward before us and paved
Enough.
the way for
Enough.
us to be able to do what we're doing right now.
So much of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how much man went and defend things that we weren't alone, but they weren't
And,
just
and had
defending
harder do than us. We got easy do, King. We living in 2023,
We
King.
soft compared to them.
Compared to them, man.
Yeah.
Direct, I mean, him.
Yeah, you know.
Boy, boy saying that that there is the real life facts.
They were in the Gideon.
Yeah.
Direct.
Yeah, they were in a different kind of Gideon where you had man who they couldn't even walk on the street.
Survival mode.
Yeah, man.
And
because
it's
telling you.
always-
Survival mode. Somebody willing to kill them, and the people who were willing to kill them was the authorities.
Right.
The ones who should be protecting them.
Right.
No, we got relatives safety. We could move on with ease. You know what I mean? And you had those kinds of disparities where people had to rebel and riot and
Yeah.
risk their life
I'm telling you.
to get to these spaces. So I feel like it's almost an affront for us to come to this stage as man with all of we cognitive abilities and all the faculties and still take it for granted.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta move the needle forward.
You have
You
to.
know what I mean? So same time we kind of respect the work that you're doing, man.
I appreciate it. I respect what y'all doing here too, because opening up a dialogue is increasingly important in a society that is kind of anti-dialogue right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't want to have conversations, especially not these kind of conversations that can be a little bit more, personal, sensitive, asking us to look outside of ourselves and aspire towards more. Those are very, very important conversations in our society, but they don't happen enough, in my opinion. You know, so I'm really happy to for y'all to have this platform now to say, okay, we're organizing that. We're gonna be the ones to be like, oh, y'all ain't wanna have no conversation about this. We're gonna talk about this.
Yeah, man, for sure,
You know?
for sure. And that was, you hit the nail on the head. That was the genesis of it, because we
Yeah.
started and we were having conversations about different things like male predatory behavior. It's like, yo, how come me hearing this in the mainstream?
Right.
How come there are no avenues for these types of discussions?
Yeah.
Because maybe you got a man who just somewhere, and based on his experiences, he just ain't feel like he wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was taken advantage of at some stage, and he doesn't have access to therapy.
Yes.
But what if you could hear a man, somebody who you could look to and point and see on the street and say, oh, but yeah, you know that dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he hear that man saying, but listen, to see the little 14-year-old girl and go after, that's wrong, brother.
Right.
Done with that.
Yeah.
That's not the vibe.
We ain't promoting that.
Yeah, so we want them thing completely. And I felt like, but these things needed to be heard
Yeah.
from man.
And I think that people like need to kind of get a full sense of the man like as well, because
Right.
sometimes we, you know, if you're as assertive as a man, sometimes it could be looked at as being tyrannical and stuff like
Right.
that. So it's almost like breaking some of the narrative and saying, no, these perspectives ain't like we trying to dominate anybody,
Right.
but this is just how we feel.
Yeah.
And so then we have women on the show as well, and they chop it up with us.
Nice.
And let us know, like, you know, when you kind of off with that one. You know,
Right.
we go back and forth, which
That's
is
important.
That's important.
That's
That's
important.
the balance.
You have to have that's the other problem with society that we live in, you know. They want, people don't like to hear somebody with a different opinion than them. If you hear somebody with a different opinion than you nowadays, you could cancel them or
Yeah.
throw them off or whatever the case may be. And it's like, why? Yes, okay, fair enough, you could disagree with somebody, that's no problem. But to write them off completely as a human being, what you doing? That's lazy.
Yeah.
You ain't teaching them nothing. You ain't improving them for the next person to come along and say, okay, because of this conversation that I had with this person, I can acknowledge that I was wrong in certain beliefs and I need to improve my thinking in certain things. But if somebody just write you off one time because you say something that they ain't like, what you learning from that? You ain't learning anything from that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's very important to engage in dialogue with like-minded folks, but also with people who don't have the same viewpoint necessarily
Yeah,
as
and a
you.
difference of opinion.
Right.
Because it moves the needle forward again.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you have opposing views and you're able to articulate your view, but you might change my mind.
Right.
You know what I mean? 'Cause I might see things a certain way. Just the way you articulate it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You make me look at it a little bit
Right.
differently.
Even if your mind isn't changed necessarily, you are aware that somebody else has a different viewpoint than you. You can't deny the fact that you heard somebody with a different viewpoint than you sharing their opinion on the situation. So
And-
you might feel away, but
And you're forced to engage with it.
you're forced to engage with it.
Yeah.
You're forced to engage with it because now, when a similar scenario occurs, you have to also think about the contrary perspective.
Right.
Right? I remember this happened last time and I was talking to Patrick and Patrick told me XYZ.
Right.
You gotta think about that.
You see, and that's why I can ask you about the name of the album, because it's about human nature.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. Like, you learn how to kind of navigate between people, different personalities and stuff like that. Because we read the book Human Nature by Robert Greene.
Yeah.
Oh, great book.
Yeah, and I
Great
was like,
book.
wonder if, I was wondering.
I've read that book. Yeah, definitely. And I feel like one of the things that, although the name of the album wasn't inspired by that specifically, the ideas that Robert Greene puts forward in the book are some that I would resonate with, and I feel like through osmosis of the world and the universe and the way how things work, that name kind of came to me, and I was like, boom,
Yeah.
that's the starting point there, and then we go from there and we expound from there.
After reading the book, right, I felt this sense of like an immense amount of empathy, like for people in general,
Right.
because it's just like, boy,
Yeah, you realize how like lost and how we are just trying to figure it out.
it's intense. You
Nobody
can't
got the
even-
answer.
Nobody got the
answers. Brother, actually, the book is so layered, right? It's just like, boy, it's just like,
Nobody got the
Yeah.
answer.
Because as you read it, you recognizing all the different personalities. You run into all of these personalities.
Yeah, you say, oh, that's that person, that. Oh, I
Right.
didn't meet that person already. Yeah.
And what you touched on as well, and what the realization that I came to from reading it was that even when you see somebody that has all the outward metrics
Yeah.
of success, right? They look like they got it all together. What going on the internal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about like when I have conversations with folks, or especially when I'm doing the education side of the art practice that I engage with, I speak to young people a lot, and I talk to them about moving the whole product forward. Now, what I mean when I say move the whole product forward is you cannot only strive for financial success, business success. You have to strive for emotional success, interpersonal success. Are your relationships good? Do you have a good foundation of relationship? Do you have people who you can trust and who can trust you? You know, is your word valuable? Can people rely on you to say, okay, if I'm gonna be here this time, I'm there that time? If you're gonna do a favor for somebody, they know right off the bat, okay, this person gonna do this favor for me, no problem. You know, a lot of folks who achieve great levels of what we would class as success in society, whether it be millionaires or business people or athletes or famous musicians, we hear about them all the time. Drug abuse, interpersonal relationship issues, depression, all kind of things, right? And some of them meet some very unfortunate and untimely end because they didn't move the whole product forward.
Yeah.
They weren't careful enough to say, I'm gonna wait my time and say, I wanna bring my personality forward, I wanna bring my energy forward, I wanna bring my people with me forward, and success will come as a product of that, as a byproduct of that.
But how would one balance that though? Because what I found is sometimes people are capable of achievement in a very isolated area of performance, right? So be it academic, be it sport, wherever it is, right? Intellectual pursuit on some level. But there's a lot to be desired on the back end because they don't do the introspection.
Right.
Or the level of attainment is so high. You've achieved such monumental success in this particular area, this isolated area, that it brings with it an ego complex.
For sure.
And you feel like, no, you can't do any wrong because we live in societies, people become sycophantic. So,
Right.
okay, but Patrick is the man. People start to revolve around Patrick.
Yeah,
Patrick
yeah.
now becomes the sun in the solar system.
Yeah, you don't hear no criticism,
Yeah,
nobody telling you nothing. Yeah,
Bro,
yeah.
nobody telling you you're wrong. So when you do these things and you're making money, so you're a millionaire, but you're a millionaire for sports.
Right.
Right? You don't, it's almost weird for you to see yourself as doing anything wrong.
Right.
It requires an objectification. You have to step outside yourself, Mr.
sure.
I was about to say, huh?
Yeah. And look at it objectively and say, okay, hey, this is what I'm doing wrong. But
Yeah.
most people don't do that.
Well, what you're talking about is self-awareness. Self-awareness is one of the most important things I feel like any human being can have. If you don't have self-awareness, you could fall into a lot of pitfalls and not be able to get out of them because you're not self-aware. And when you say look outside of self, that's a huge one there because it's very difficult to be objective about yourself, you know. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
A lot of people will lie to themselves and be like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, because we all want to feel like we're good.
Yeah.
We all want to feel like we're doing something with ourselves and we've made good decisions in our life. We all want to feel like that. That's normal. That's human nature, as we said, you know. But at the same time, human nature is also making mistakes, being aware of your mistakes and fixing your mistakes for the next time. You know, I have things that I wish I have, you know, whether it be interpersonal relationships or whatever that I wish went differently or went better, or I wish I would have handled the situation differently. But here what happened now, next time I know what to do. 'Cause I then reflect on that and say, well, when I hold in my meds now, I in my thing and I thinking, but I don't like how I handled that, you know. I could have deal with that person a little bit more graciously or kindly or patiently, whatever the case. Or maybe I was to go the other way. Maybe I was to speak up and I didn't speak up, you know. Maybe I had an opportunity to educate and I didn't take that opportunity because of whatever the case may be. So you have to always be assessing. Self-awareness is one of the most important things you can have, especially as a male.
Yeah.
Because we tend to, as Tiba was saying earlier, we tend to dominate the space without even realizing that we're dominating the space. You know, and then we go back afterwards and we think everything normal, but meanwhile everybody around us like, I'm the man.
Yeah.
Man just talking. You check? So it's like, okay, like, how can I be aware now to say, okay, how can I be more of a listener?
Yeah.
How can I be more observant? How can I be more, aware of things around me, but not necessarily have to feel like I'm the center of attention?
And that requires a suppression of ego.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Again, to the point of achievement, it brings with it a massive ego.
Yeah.
Like you feel like you are the man. And especially if everybody around you telling you
that, yeah.
That ability to take that step back and do that introspection and say, bye, I think Patrick was only telling me this and I respond to Patrick in a way that I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And then, again, that self-actualization that you speak of, some of that is embedded within humility.
Right.
And, taking a step forward and saying, but Patrick, we had a conversation the other day and I know I'm over kind of way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that wasn't my intention, bro.
But
Forgive me.
But I noticed too that you got a lot of people that don't really take the time out to sit down with their thoughts. I feel like scared of the thoughts, like scared of like looking at themselves in the mirror.
I don't hear man say that direct king.
Yeah.
They're like, bye, these demons, I got me want to see them,
The man want to hear them, and then sometimes you find that I find that sometimes people like stay active, like doing a lot of things
to keep themselves.
busy. Yeah, so they don't have to
Distracted,
think about that, because that part then requires a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that they can make you feel, it can make you get anxious.
Because
Yeah.
it's painful too.
It's painful.
To identify your own flaws.
Yeah, you ain't want to do that.
Yeah.
And to some degree too, it's kind of like comfortable to be one way than to do the work to
Change it.
Yeah, to change it.
Because what happened is that they're listening to themselves and it's like, do I really need to change? Like, do I really need to? Well, but who cares?
Yeah, these other things working.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would I do that? But really and truly, that's the thing holding you back from even more success.
Yeah.
Growing as a person,
Yeah.
being more emotionally
You
intelligent.
see, that's why sometimes I don't be so worried when I hear people like on social media say things like,
Self-made and them things.
not just self-made, but hold on to what you believe in, and nobody telling you different. And I said, boy, that's a slippery slope,
It's a
because
slippery slope.
sometimes you got to listen to what people saying in order to make you need feedback. Sometimes, you know what I mean. But it's just how you deal with the feedback.
But then that creates another issue. There's another problem embedded within that. It's because what I've found in, again, human nature, there are some persons, right, who tell themselves they're infallible. You can't tell them when they're wrong.
Yeah.
Because if I were to say to you, bro, what you did wasn't the move, you offended low-key. You're not looking at it from a space of, okay,
Yeah.
Lanza trying to pull me and pump.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, he sees something that I didn't see. Let me kind of sit with that and kind of try to figure out what I missed.
Yeah.
Nah, man, it's just like, but how dare you? And especially if they feel like the timing wasn't what they
Right.
would have wanted it to be. So if it's me and you do something right here, Patrick, and I say to you, yo, bro, nah, man, fall back on that. You feel like, but I embarrass you in front of Patrick. So, you know what I mean? So
Ego
all
again.
of
Ego
it-
again.
all
And,
of it is
and
this
lack
ego.
of trust too, because I always say people sometimes they study where the sound coming from.
Yeah.
If somebody telling you something, they study where it coming from, because somebody could tell you something and it could be it feels like a compliment. It feels like 100-pound of feather. Like, it feels nice and smooth and everything comfortable, but it could be the one thing, the compliment that holding you back from
More progress. Yeah.
right? And then somebody else will come and tell you something that sounds hard and it feel like 100-pound of lead.
Yeah.
Right? But you needed that in order to get to the next
To go
step.
up. Yeah. Facts.
But it depends on where the sound coming from, and some people, like you said, people with egos, they don't really register that. They don't really study where the sound coming from. It's like, you go against me,
That's it.
That's
Lock
it.
off.
Cut.
anybody, you know what I mean?
For sure. But I think at that point you have to strike a balance, and you have to know who it is you need to listen to and who it is you don't need to listen to. Because ain't everybody out there that gonna tell you something that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You got people whose opinion that you respect, because over time you could see them doing it. Like,
Just based on the
right,
demonstration.
if a man come in and he drinking every day and he tell me I got to stop drink, man, listen,
No.
he can't tell me to stop drink. No, he might be giving me good advice,
Yeah.
but at the same time, this person is not showing me that they need to, that what is required for me to put more stock and more weight into what they're saying. No, if I
Your demonstration ain't solid.
your demonstration ain't solid, you ain't living where you're talking.
Right.
So that's why for me it's so important for me to be living while talking, because when I say something, especially to the young people is the most
Crucial.
they're able to see through all the BS.
Yeah.
They don't power with nothing. They just watching you as you are.
They're going to tell you too.
And they're gonna tell you as you are, king.
Yeah, the
They ain't
youth.
wasting the time.
Yeah, the youth is
So
the
for me now, it's like, yo, am I coming correct now? Am I thorough? Because when I talk to the youth, them and I say, yo, you ain't got to go that way. You could go next way here. This is an opportunity for you to build.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I want to see.
A big part of it is leading by example. But I heard Jill Scott say a thing, right? And it's simple, but it's so profound. Jill Scott said, if you can't tell me what to do, you can't tell me what to do.
Wow. I like that one, dear.
If you can't tell me what to do, you can't tell me what to do. Bro, when I was like, I had to take a step
When you
back.
deep it.
The meds was crazy. I was like, yo,
Yeah.
she know what she's saying.
Yeah.
You can't guide me if you ain't know where you going.
Yeah.
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 You cannot guide me if you don't know where you're going. If you don't have a sense of self, if you don't know who you are as a person, how you gonna lead me? You can't lead me.
No, you're not. You're not equipped.
But so funny though is like, let's say you are a person and you have the sight, they have the vision. You're gonna have to be tempered and know how much to give and how much not to give.
Yeah, that's true.
because you could be seen as the enemy.
Yeah.
And you remember that show? You seen that show with Jason Momoa where they're fighting people with vision.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that.
So when you kind of put it into context, it's almost like when you do have sight, you kind of have to almost like think as you like and live like the others in a
Yeah.
sense,
Yeah.
But now and again you might just chime in and give some direction. But if people see you got too much vision, they're like, who you think you beating better than us? And afterwards you start getting attacked.
I know that. And the thing is, none of us are perfect, That's the other thing
that's the other
we
thing.
really have to pay attention to is none of us are perfect. We all just making the best we can with what we have,
Human nature.
And exactly. Human nature, you come back to that
Come back
again
to that.
because at the end of the day, I want my flaws to be understood just as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I can't say, oh, you're doing too much this, or you ain't doing enough that. I ain't trying to judge. I could only share my personal experiences and say, okay, from my personal experiences, this is not the way to go. But for what I will tell you, here's another option that you can look into to improve. But at the same time, I am not telling anybody, oh, use a write-off if you ain't doing this, or use a write-off if you ain't doing... No. Because that's how you really lose people.
Listen, you touch on something there, right? And it's just like, so you made a reference to, extending grace to
Right.
people.
Yeah.
Listen, as much as this show is an outpouring for us and we're trying to inform and influence and change the headspace of people, a lot of it is shadow work for man still doing.
Definitely.
Because I've learned about extension of grace, like extending grace to people, and just understanding that by man gon' fall to, you know what I mean? You got ones and ones around you who gonna do things that you ain't really like, and you just gotta be able to reconcile that feeling and say to them, yo, bro, I forgive you. You know what I mean? Make your move.
That's one thing I wish we could see. I would like to see more of in St. Kitts, and maybe I'll continue to use my platform to encourage people to do that, because especially in the music scene, just to go off on a tangent for a second, but this actually relates quite heavily to masculinity as well. In the music scene in St. Kitts, right, we have a lot of artists who don't see eye to eye with one another, right? And I won't get too deep into it, but at the same time, we're so small as a nation that to see people like write off another artist just because of one thing or two things. Come on, what you doing?
Photo together,
You're falling by the wayside with that king. That mentality ain't serving you.
No.
Yeah.
That mentality is not serving. That mentality can only hold you back because you are taking away future opportunities for yourself.
Yeah.
That's why I love to collaborate. I'll be cross here and I'll be cross there, and I cool with everybody, and we're working together and we're doing we thing, because in my head I done meditate, like the more that we could bring together forward, bring everybody forward, the better off we're gonna be for the future.
I was watching this little documentary on Netflix. It was talking about the perspective of tennis players.
Okay.
Right? And no, the tennis players, even though they're by themselves, is a whole heap of other people behind them, right? But they were saying that through an individual sport, the players tend to be very self-centered and selfish in essence, right? And it kind of, when you talk about the music industry, it's almost the same thing.
That's
even
true.
though the team behind you is like, there's gotta be so self-centered, and it kind of adds to some of the artistry of it, right?
Absolutely, I agree with that.
But then that creates problems for you within itself, because it's like a competition thing now.
Because it needs balance.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was about to
Balance,
say
yeah.
balance. Balance
It needs
is
balance.
key.
I think anything in life, like, you know what I mean, high achievement requires you to be competitive. right?
Yeah.
And that competitive side of music is what creates some of the friction. Like a man and a man would go a little thing and he said something in a
I
verse.
better than you. You can't touch me lyrically.
Even somebody might tell them, like somebody,
Yeah,
like, one of
this
their
man
friends
says
them,
something about you
and
ain't
got a
rate
problem,
you
you know?
like that, yeah. But you done listening to your friend them and trust
Yeah,
me.
but I mean, if you allow that to fuel you and not allow it to create that division and that dissension, boy, it's a different type of speed because
I'm telling you.
as man, right? Him and I had this running thing where it's like, okay, one of the metrics or one of the things that we try to do is we try to perform at a high level.
Yeah.
And constantly make more money. It ain't about making the money, but money is a tool to move you from one point to the
And
next.
as a result, as well.
Yeah, it's a result too. So let's say he come and he say, yo, bro, I make X amount of dollars, you know. But low-key, how you me feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I gotta touch that. Right? But it's a positive
Right.
thing because it's like, yo, I see you doing good
Right.
and I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna touch you next week.
Yeah, I love
Don't even
Listen,
hold
you
that
can't
steam.
style me.
When,
Yeah,
I,
you
wa-
ain't gonna
when, I
style
was,
me.
when I was a youth, my mother said something to me that will always stick with me for the rest of my life. She said, it is not a crime, it is not a negative thing to be money motivated. She said, it's not a bad thing. The problem is that people allow it to make all the decisions for them.
Yeah.
And that's where you run into problems.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But being money motivated on its face is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing to use it, as you say, as a metric for where you are and where you want to be in the future.
It's like a game.
Right.
It's like a video game.
Right.
You know? Like points.
Yeah,
How many
man.
points you get today?
Yeah, man, I want all my coins.
Yeah, because I think
Direct.
I think this week we're talking about itself. Like, yo, you're doing things for money. You're kind of like a whore in essence. You know what I mean? To whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever you're doing in life,
You're putting yourself out there for that.
you check. Yeah.
It's a form of prostitution.
Just fine.
But I mean, when you think about it though, you know, as a man, right? If you're striving for all of these high ideals, what come on the back of that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Finances.
Yeah, financial success.
And that's the thing. That's the way how I look at it. Like, yeah, said that, and I love that there too. And for me, it's like, if I doing what I supposed to be doing, the money gonna reach regardless.
Yeah, man.
Man, you ain't got to worry about
Yeah, so
it.
it ain't like you're
As a
running
result,
it down.
yeah.
No.
But when it
You
comes,
gonna be as a byproduct.
you
Yeah.
appreciate it because I sacrificing. So
Right.
it's alchemy.
Yeah, and trust me, when you make $1 from your own strength, which is $1, boy, you feel
Fam.
Wow.
different, you know.
Telling you.
Fam.
Trust
Different.
So, you know what I mean? Those things are important. And I feel like, you know, there are a lot of persons who I see, they existing in a space where they feel like things gonna come easy. So
Bye.
they got the same attraction to money, you know. Or they want all the coins. They want be papered up
Right.
to live a certain lifestyle. But they don't understand that there's a responsibility that's embedded within that level of achievement. Right? Like you got a point to walk, you gotta work
man.
hard.
You got to play the game and be Cooper.
Yeah.
You know
And
what I mean?
But I think a lot of it too is like they're afraid to fail, you know, and because they never been a lot of folks, especially young men, have not been empowered to fail. You know, like one thing again, going back to when I was younger, my parents used to encourage me to do all kind of things, and ain't everything I'm gonna be good at. But at the same time, I put myself out there to see what I like, what I'm good at,
testing your
what
metal.
I'm not good at.
Yeah.
You
Find
know,
yourself.
Find myself.
Yeah.
But a lot of young people in St. Kitts have never been given the tools to find themselves or been empowered to find themselves in that kind of way. And so they're always living in this like fear of like, boy, I good with what I got right now. Let me just hold on to it. Let me just hold on to my
and
little piece, you know?
The thing about failing too, it kind of, and how you handle failure and stuff like that, it builds your character. You know, the character, I remember saying you that video is almost like, the character is like that chisel. Like you're chiseling pieces off you and you kind of like shaping yourself.
Like
Right.
you mold yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think a big part of that too comes down to parenting. You know what I mean? Because sometimes the responsibility, not even sometimes, I think the responsibility of parents is to equip the children and to teach the youth them how to be comfortable with failure.
Yeah.
Because I remember my mother showing me like, yo, don't study that, get up, go
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you gonna stop
But you
for?
see, but then talk about parenting, and some parents ain't even got the tools.
They don't got the gear.
They didn't get the game neither, so it's like they didn't even know.
Right, so
tough.
you would have parents who would see the youth making an attempt and say, you wasting time with that, you ain't see that ain't going nowhere.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
just
for
like, yo,
sure.
why would you tell the youth that?
Yeah.
You gotta encourage them and to keep pushing, you know what I mean? Because it's maybe 1,000 failures All you need to do is succeed once.
Once.
You know? Sometimes you only need to score one. You know?
That's it.
Yeah,
That
but-
one score, like you. Okay,
That's
let's
the
say
bag.
you try 7 businesses,
Yeah.
right? And the 7 businesses they hit.
Mm-hmm.
7 of them ain't hit. Yo, that one business that does hit because you try the 7 times, the 8th business that hits
Yeah.
set you up for life.
Yeah, and they don't like, for example, when you see a guy like let's use a figure in society. Let's say like Bill Gates, for example. Right? At one point, he was one of the richest men in the world, and people talk about Microsoft building it out of his garage and all kind of. If you really read Bill Gates' story, right? Bill Gates failed at a lot of businesses before he gets successful, you know?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
A lot of failures, you know.
'Cause
But
they
what
don't
happened
stop.
now is he ain't stop. Exactly.
stop.
He said, "Oh, okay, I'm using that as an example of how to move forward." Steve Jobs, the same thing. Steve Jobs was almost out of Apple.
Yeah.
Was almost kicked out of his own company,
No, they kick him out.
and then he had to come back.
He come back.
Yeah, kick him out. Yeah,
He created another business called Next
Next.
when he
Right.
was out, and then he
Come
came
back
and
in.
integrate and
Market
create
share and
Even
then bill
a-
again.
Pixar
Even
and
things
all
too,
these things.
and the sports fan like Michael Jordan, we tell you, he missed
Michael
a bunch,
Jordan.
a bunch of shots.
Could have barely make the varsity team
You see what I'm saying?
in university.
Yeah.
But did he allow that to set him back? No. He used it as motivation and tools for the future.
And it speaks to persistence.
But you
right?
see, we this is a conversation that we don't have a lot. We talk about, we don't go as deep as genetics because sometimes you gotta be. You almost feel like sometimes you're blessed with a certain set of genetic
Right.
ability.
Yeah.
Because even though you could grow up with parents who are not really supportive, but because of you genetics, sometimes you might get something. You might have the gear that they don't even know about.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And you could even use what they're saying as motivation as well. So something it's just so crazy because you could be a person born with the best genetics, though, but then you got that one little piece
You
that's
got
just
a motivation.
insecure, and then
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
just
yeah,
could
yeah.
just deflate
Deflate
you.
your whole thing. Yeah.
Comfortable.
But at the same time, as much as I agree with that, I don't think that. I think those are diamonds in the rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
are
yeah,
diamonds in the rough.
Outliers.
Outliers, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
I don't think that in terms of moving a society forward and improving our society over a period of time, we can't just say, okay, yeah, if you got it, you got it. Because we have to promote infrastructural changes
That cultivates
to
it.
cultivate it
And grow it
within
and nurture
people.
it,
Yeah, exactly. Because somebody might have the gene and they might become successful, but imagine how much more successful or whatever. Imagine what else they could have done if they were nurtured from the very
Probably, yeah.
start. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
If they didn't have to fight for every last little bit.
But then and that takes a whole community in terms of that, because in terms of, we're saying that some people ain't really get the tools from a parent source
Right.
either. So it's almost like it's gotta be a whole community approach.
Yeah, and that's why as much as you know the album and the music and stuff is very important to me. Education, arts education, giving speeches, giving workshops with young people, like that's equally as important to me in terms of my career, because it allows me to speak directly to the young people and directly to the future of a society and say, listen, I know you want to do it this way and that's totally cool, but here are some additional tools that could help you get there even faster or even better. You know what I'm saying? And to see the impact, like, so I've been an arts educator now for the past we got 2023, so that's 5 going on 6 years now. And for me, I've been able now to see some of those people who I started mentoring 5-6 years ago grow to the point now where they're doing art, they're doing their own thing. Maybe they might not be artists, because ain't everybody who you mentor gonna turn out to be an artist, but at the same time they have foundational principles that they can rely on to be
and
whatever
you are
they
part
want
of that
to be.
journey.
That's what
So
I contributed.
So how you feel being the OG?
Great. but I still got a long ways to go, 'cause I got my OG stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's a series.
So speak to some of the work that coming up locally though. What some of the plans are
So
before you making the exodus?
I have a lot of things on the go right now. A couple of them I can't really speak about yet because they haven't fully come into fruition. But I'll just say, in 2021, I did some work with Washington ATIBA High School, Newtown Primary, and Virchilds Primary as well, in terms of delivering some workshops with them, speaking to the young people there in the classroom about alternative roles and alternative jobs in society nowadays. So often in sync, it's the lawyer, doctor, chief thing get promoted for no reason.
Yeah.
And some people will fall into those brackets, which is great. But I find people like that who are already on that track, they're good. They could do what they want. They're gonna be fine. But what we're doing for these people who don't want to do that, who are not as academically inclined, who work better with trades or work better with services or have creative minds, are very athletic but not so academically. What we're doing for these people here. So my speaking to them was around those issues, and I could just say that I'm working on something that will be a little bit more long term and a little bit more sustainable, rather than me just having to like organize the whole thing and say, okay, I want to do this, because really and truly when I did those workshops is my connections growing up here in St. Kitts that I had to use
Leverage
to pull them together. But it's like now I want more infrastructural, systematic kind of workshops and different kind of things that I could rely on to say, okay, I'm working with, the higher up authorities and so to really bring forward these ideas,
Yeah, so that the chain is a little bit more.
Yeah,
meaningful.
exactly. So more to come on that in the future. But in the near present, we're still doing work, we're still doing arts, we're still building forward. February 12th, I have a show, Fragments of Love, acoustic night with Zul and friends, Chanel, Ideli, Mimi hosting, De Jour, Footsie, so many different great artists who have graced the scene in many different ways. And I think that an acoustic night is really interesting concept, because I don't think that we've really tapped into that art space in St. Kitts.
Locally,
what
right.
time does it start and where is the location?
So it's going to be at the Eco Park. It starts at 4 p.m. So, if you got Super Bowl plans or anything like that, you go Eco Park first for the show, and then your Super Bowl party afterwards, We're going to be done by around 7:30, and, give everybody a chance to do both things.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so the show starts at 4, and we're really looking forward to doing it.
I want to ask you a personal question, right, before we wrap up, right? And it's going back to one of the first things you were talking about. Your first piece was like about profiling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of come into your world a little bit,
Okay.
and understand from your perspective what is like, being on the outside as, like an African, Caribbean person, with your complexion, right? And then hearing dialect and all that, how is that like navigating for you? From if you could summarize it, like how is that?
It is an experience I could never fully put into words. It's an experience I could never fully put into words. I think that in Toronto, when people see me or hear me, they obviously know that I'm coming from somewhere else, and the hair and complexion and everything. It's they just see, okay, that's another black person. And then afterwards, they might be like, oh, he's from the Caribbean, or oh, he's from somewhere else, however the case may be. So there's that interaction there as well. And then when I'm in St. Kitts now, because I'm lighter, people be like, oh, that's a tourist, or that's a whoever the case, or that's some random rich person, or whoever the case may be. And then they hear me start talking, and it's like, oh, you're from here. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of interesting to be, like you say, on the outside from both aspects of it, both sides of the playing field. But actually, it used to be something that I really like struggle with. I had to, be mindful of. But now, give thanks. I've been able to use that as a ability, not as a drawback. Because at the same time, like, I'm able to really have a really clear viewpoint of the society, because I'm from the outside looking in. Yeah. And as much as I freely consider myself a Kittitian, anybody asks me, I tell them I'm from St. Kitts. But at the same time, like, it also gives me an opportunity to view St. Kitts as a community and seeing like the various things and, the way that people would interact with you before they know that you're from St. Kitts, and then after they know from where you're from St. Kitts. It can be very different at times, I remember this one time I went Marriott in the bar, and, I was there talking, and this lady was talking to me, and whatever the case may be, and then I walk out, like, whatever, so I just talk to her normal, you know, asking her for a couple drinks or whatever the case maybe, and she, "You from here?" "I didn't know. Da, 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 da. Yeah, from here. Just here cooling, relaxing, taking my time, you know. And also because I'm not full-time in St. Kitts, people don't see me all the time. So when they do see me, they might not know, however the case may be. And it's the same thing in Toronto, you know. People automatically assume that, you know, I'm just another black Torontonian. But then I'll start talking, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're from the Caribbean." And then I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not." But in, like I was saying to you earlier, Toronto has a lot of second and third generation Caribbean immigrants. But I don't consider myself a second or third generation Caribbean immigrant because I grew up in St. Kitts. You know, so I'm first generation. I'm moving. Granted, I was, you know, I have my Canadian passport and everything ahead of time. But due to my mom and stuff, but at the same time, like I never lived in Toronto at any point in time except for when I was a baby. You know what I'm saying? So my experiences are uniquely Kittitian. My personal outlook on life is Kittitian. And so those experiences I take with me now to Toronto, and people are like, "Oh wow, that's different." Yeah,
because I only ask that because when you mentioned
it's a good question.
When you mentioned the thing about being profiled, I didn't really, like, you didn't recognize it. It was like, cause
you wouldn't look at me and be like, yeah, but at the same time, like, when I go there now, it's like, oh, everybody, and especially if I let the hair out and, you know, everybody, like, you know, seeing that, and, you know, cause at the time when that happened to me, with the police and stuff, like, I had the fro out all the way, and I had on like a black power t-shirt, a black power sweater. So I had like the fist going like raising up to the sky, and I don't know. At the end of the day, you never know what it is trigger somebody to call the police on you. I could never go into the mind of the classmate that called the police on me and be like, "Oh, there's a suspicious looking individual in here with a knife." I don't know what went through that person's mind to look at me and be like, "That's a threat to my life." But at the same time, something about me would have caught their attention and made them nervous or made them, whatever the case may be, and then the police come in and it's like, "Yeah,
crazy,
that's you." So, but yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I think like I said, like that's another reason why I think it's so important for me to come back and share my story with other people, because they wouldn't necessarily look at me and be like, "Oh, you face a lot of hardship or you face a lot of adversity," however. But at the same time, like, yeah, I've been the same as everybody else, you know, and the stories that I could share with you is the unique experiences that I've had over a period of time. Like, it's from living in St. Kitts now for the first 19 years of my life, and then also living in Toronto now for the last 10 years of my life. I'm 29 now, and so I have good experiences from both places, and I'm able to understand the psyche from both places while still, you know, operating for myself.
Yeah, I understand that fully, man.
Exist within a duality.
Yeah, man. I mean, even for like me going to New York and stuff like that, it was weird because I went to New York with the idea of like the Malcolm X and the Martin Luther King, like, hey, like black people together and whatever, right? But only black people was telling me, "Go back to my country, go back where I come from."
I know.
And it's like, but I thought we were supposed to be together based on all the stuff I read and see.
Yeah, but the thing is, the black American, I think a lot of black Americans have this idea of the black American experience, and if you fall outside of the black American or the black Canadian experience, then you are also other to them as well. You know, so at the same time, you will also face some level of discrimination because they don't see you as one of them. They will see you as a black person, but they're seeing you as a black person from outside of America. So they feel like you didn't experience the same things that they experienced, which is true to a certain degree. But also, we all have experiences with oppression as black people, and our experiences are not that different when you really get a chance to break them down and talk about them with one another. But because the media shows them, you know, black Americans got life the worst and this, that, and the third, it's like, they internalize those things, and it's hard for them to break out of those cycles. You know,
and you kind of get grouped into, even from coming from the Caribbean and moving, you get grouped in like when other people see you. Because I can remember working in offices and I was the only black person in there. And when I had my afro, you getting questions like, "Could I touch you here?
My
Could
God.
you speak ghetto to me?"
You lucky to ask you a question. Sometimes they touch me here and they ain't ask me nothing.
They asking me to speak ghetto. I was like, what are you talking about?
You hear them kind of things?
You know what I mean?
Speak in your dialect.
I remember one time I met this guy in school, Italian guy. He tell me, listen, if you was to come to my neighborhood, it would be a problem.
That's
Maybe
crazy.
months later, he took me downstairs. He said, I want to show him in your car. I said, come, your hand, fresh, right? 'Cause he go up in money.
Yeah.
And then when I sat down, he come in. He said, sit on the driver's side. I said, all right, cool. He went in the passenger side. And he leaned over. He said, yo, you know you was like the only black person that sitting in this car, right?
That's crazy.
I was like, what?
But he feel cool with telling you that.
He feel cool with telling me that because
in my
he's like,
mind I thinking, what you telling me that for?
that's what I was thinking too. But he feel cool saying that to
Yeah.
me, and I ain't take it as no badge of honor.
Yeah, no.
Right?
That ain't
Because just
nothing
like-
to be proud of. Cause you done realize that this man done discriminating against a lot of other people.
That's what I'm saying.
And only because he know
know
you
me
as a
from-
person.
yeah,
he
familiar.
say, okay, yeah,
Because
cool,
if they
Tiba, cool.
if they come to his community
No,
and he didn't know me,
Yeah, that's
that'd
a
have been
problem, right?
right?
You like if you knock on his door as a stranger, now it's problems.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So you really got to be mindful of that. That's a really interesting. That's a whole other conversation for our next time when I come back.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's why I kept watching the time. I was like, okay, I'll squeeze in this
Yeah,
question
yeah,
because
no, I
I
appreciate
wanted to
that.
go back to the profile thing, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to share some like on that experience.
It's real out there, man. It's real out there. I tell people that all the time. America, Canada, these ain't no play places.
No.
These is
Concrete
real place.
jungle.
Concrete jungle king.
Yeah.
Real.
Ain't easy over there, fam. It's not. So I try and share my experiences. That's why I think that was a really important part for me to put on the album, because I was like, yeah, ain't sweet over here 24/7.
So the album is out on our platforms.
All
now?
platforms, all streaming platforms, get it out now. I'll check it out now. Human Nature. Patrick Walters, Human Nature, available everywhere.
Vibes.
Give thanks.
Vibes. I'm gonna look for it definitely.
Yeah, man,
You done know.
definitely.
As soon as I reach you.
Purchase from Seeing Kids.
Yeah.
Right?
But I
Straight
mean,
out.
again, the hour don't fly off.
Yeah.
We are at
Crazy.
the end of the show. So to everybody that's tapped in, you've been listening to the He Nuh Show on WINN Media 98.9. We are in studios with us, Patrick the Creative.
Respect.
Right? Yeah, man, the man touching it crazy. And February 12th,
Yeah.
Fragments of Love.
Yeah, acoustic night.
Oh,
Be there.
Yeah.
4 to 7.
4 to 7. 4 to 7, a
Eco
beautiful
Park.
night. Yeah, first acoustic night in St. Kitts, so don't miss out.
So it's going to be vibes. But I mean, everybody that's tapped in, thank you for listening. Enjoy your week. You've been listening to the He Nuh Show. And as usual, enjoy your evening. Good night.
You found the sound. 98.9. WINN.